What's going on, YouTube family? Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 mistakes people do while using Turo. Now, I'm probably going to give you a lot more than that, but I figured this would be a great title for YouTube and get a lot of clicks, so let's get into the video. Now, it's been a while since I showed any love to the rental car community, and I figured I'd do an updated video talking about the Turo market and a lot of the mistakes that we've seen in the past if you're interested in getting in the business. Now, I'm currently going through my licensing to get reopened here in Las Vegas. I'm going to be renting classic cars directly to the public. I'm not really going to do anything on Turo, but I figured this would be a great way for people to get started, and the market's starting to slow down, so you're starting to see people get pushed out. And there's definitely openings if you're thinking about getting into Turo. Now, the first tip is do not get yourself in debt just to try Turo. Now, this is something that really pushes my buttons. A lot of these Turo gurus say, oh, you got to buy a Mercedes or a Cadillac or a Lexus, whatever else to try Turo and you're going to make a bunch of money. So people actually go out, get themselves into debt just to try Turo to see if they like it. And then what happens when they hate it? They're stuck. They're screwed with the car. One of my buddies, he was told from one of his friends that in Orlando, Florida, any third-row SUV is gold because of Disney World. So he went out and bought a $75,000 Escalade, rented it for 30 days after kids puking in his car, people calling him in the middle of the night because they missed their flight and they wanted him to deliver the car, all these headaches and problems. He decided that Turo was not right for him. But now he was stuck with the $75,000 car. So he took it back to the same dealership of where he bought it, and they offered him $7,000 less. So he lost that plus the sales tax in just 30 days, which is absolutely crazy. So if you're thinking about getting started in Turo, try to use your own car first, just to see if you like the day-to-day operations and it's something you're interested in. And if your car is too old or you don't have a car, see if you have a friend or family member, somebody that lets you try it on just a few days randomly, just to see if you can test the climate and see if you actually like it. Now, the next tip is learn your market. This is probably the biggest mistake that majority of hosts do when they first start Turo. They start listening to everybody on YouTube saying, hey, you know what? Buy a Mercedes convertible, buy a Mustang convertible. They are the best ROI. You'll rent them out and you'll do great. Yeah, they're great if you live like in Vegas, LA, Miami, something like that. What is if you live in a predominantly area that's like Midwest, Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and it's really cold? You probably can't use those things during the wintertime. So those don't really work well for your market. Something like a luxury truck or luxury SUV that's all-wheel drive will more than likely make you money in the summer, fall, and winter. So it's very important that you look at your geographical area and see what works best for you. If you don't know your market, I tell a lot of people the best thing to do is to actually get on Turo and look at all the cars and see which ones have the most reviews. If you see a minivan there and it's got 1,200 reviews and right next to it is a Mercedes convertible with 3 reviews, you probably know that everybody's going for that, that minivan. It's a high demand. You should probably get another one if there's not a lot of those on there. But that's one thing I tell everybody, buy what your market demands. Don't go out there and think that you're going to copy somebody else's business plan and make money with it. It just simply doesn't work that way. Now, the next tip kind of follows along with the last one I just went over is you buy cars to make money. You don't buy cars that you like. This is another big mistake. People want to drive nice cars, maybe newer Mercedes, BMWs, Land Rovers, stuff like that. So they spend a bunch of money buying cars that they like that may not make the best ROI. One of the biggest money makers that I had in my business were slingshots and box trucks with lift gates. It was the craziest thing. I'd buy these things for 12 to 15 grand each, and they were renting out anywhere from $200 to $300 a day. I was making great money. And those were my biggest ROI rentals. But I still had a few Mercedes, BMWs, the G-Wagons and stuff like that. It would make me money, but nothing compared to a slingshot or a box truck with a liftgate. Absolutely blew my mind. So don't buy cars that you want for yourself. Buy cars that actually make sense, that will make money. On top of that, we want to think about depreciation, which I'll go into here a little bit later. Now, the next tip is definitely going to be a reality check and a kick in the nuts for some, is it is extremely hard to become full-time being a Turo host. You can never totally replace your income unless you scale. And this is probably one of the hardest things to do. A lot of people have 3 cars or 4 cars or 5 cars. That's enough to kind of get you going with Turo. But the only way to make real money is probably 10 to 15 cars plus. Because by then you have enough spread across where your calendar's filled up, you're making enough money to outrun depreciation, maintenance, and other things, but then also have cars being paid off by the other ones. This is very important. I see this all the time. People start renting out 1 or 2 cars, they buy like 6 more, and then they quit their job. Don't do that. Keep your job for as long as you physically possibly can before you actually give away these things, because if you quit your job, you think you got 6 cars on Turo, you're going to be making a bunch of money. All you're going to do is rob Peter to pay Paul, and you're going to wind up being upside down in 2 years, which we're going to go into here in a minute. Next tip is all about automation. Now, this is something a lot of people struggle with, and you hear rental car automation, which most of it's BS, but the automation we're talking about are like lock boxes that you can send a code to, things that basically you can do that you're not really in touch with. So if you have a detailer set up every week that comes by, details your cars, cleans them, get that set up on a payment arrangement, pay him a month in advance, and have him show up every time there's a car that's available or that's dirty that needs to be done. So the way I did it at my shop is all the cars that were pointing outwards were basically out for rentals. Anything that was pointing inwards towards the building was a rental that was dropped off. And so the detailer knew to look at that car and clean it up while he was there. And if there's nothing else, he would detail that car and then he would just leave and the car would be ready to go. My lock boxes, same thing. It was really nice. I could send them a code. If they came, the code wasn't working, I can actually press a button, the boxes would open up. I would try to do as much as I can to be hands off. So this way, if people's flights get canceled, if they come in the middle of the night, you're not out there trying to check these people in at the crack of dawn. You have some sort of a backup system that'll automate it a little bit easier. Also, maintenance checks, keeping up on your books. We had a system where it actually pulls books of every single vehicle. So we know which vehicle is depreciating fastest, which one's getting to more miles. So this way we can make options to pay that vehicle down quicker so we're not upside down. Next tip is safety inspections and maintenance. Now this one is probably one of the biggest ones that absolutely blows my mind that 90% of Turo hosts do not do. I stopped renting cars from Turo because I would get in there. Yeah, they would wash and vacuum the car, but the tires were bald, the brakes were squeaking, every ball joint was loose. Every time you hit something in a speed bump, the car had 30,000 miles, but it sounded like a car with 200,000 miles. People beat the heck out of rental cars. You need to actually inspect these things every single time they come back. Now I know that's very hard, and if you don't have a shop or facility, I tell everybody else, you need to do a once a month wheels off inspection. You get in there, you take off all the wheels, you lift it up in the air, you look at the muffler system, you look at the suspension, you check everything out and you videotape it and you detail it and you keep it in your maintenance logs. This is very, very important. People don't check the tires on a monthly basis. They don't check the oil on a monthly basis. All these things you need to do, because guess what happens? If they take that car out and let's say they slide into somebody and they hit, all they got to do is say, oh, look, the tires are bald. They're not adequate. I slid, I crashed into them. Guess what? Turo's going to deny your claim. You're going to be screwed because you put an unsafe car out there and they may completely black flag you or kick you off the platform. It sounds funny, but that's literally what happens to people. Or they turn around and try to sue you. So that's even more fun. So these are some of the things that maintenance, you have to have records, you have to have proof. So if this happens and they crash into a car and they say the brakes were working or the tires were bad, you can literally pull out this folder and be like, hey, look, the brakes were checked, the tires were checked every single month. Look at my track record. That's what people want to see. On top of that, every time you get paid on a vehicle, let's say you make $50 a day, take $5 a day and stick it in a can and just keep it for maintenance of the vehicle. I tell everybody, it's not about breakdown maintenance in fleets, it's preventative maintenance. If it's 100,000 miles, change the time belt and water pump. If the tires are 30,000 miles, don't keep looking at them thinking, that, oh, I'm going to get there eventually. If you know you want to do this and you have a little bit of extra cash and you have maybe 2 or 3 of the same cars, maybe a Nissan Altima, buy another set of tires. Just have them there at the shop just in case if anything happens, you're ready to go. Oil filters, brakes, all those things, you should have multiple extra sets at your home for any reason, because if something happens and you can fix it yourself or you got to call a mobile mechanic, you can do the brakes, the tires, the oil change all within a few minutes and you won't lose that rental and you can keep that customer happy and keep your score high. Now the next tip is auto pricing. I know a lot of people hate it. They feel like Turo's literally giving away your car. You can make so much more money. But it's good if you're just starting out and you're trying to get as many reviews as physically possible. You put it on auto pricing and just let it roll. I tell everybody in the first 6 months, if you're doing this, money is important, but your reviews are even more important, because if you can actually build a good, solid rapport with a lot of people and you get a lot of reviews and you get to Power Host or Pro Host or whatever it is now, much faster, then you'll be able to scale even quicker. So I tell a lot of people, they're focusing on charging a bunch of money and trying to get as much as they physically possibly can out of the vehicles when they first get started. You need to build a reputation so this way you can ask for the higher dollar amounts down the road. Next tip has to do a little bit with scaling. It's actually buying your cars. Now, a lot of people were told that, you go buy 4 or 5 cars at one time at 3 different dealerships on the same Friday, so you get approved on everybody. And then on Monday, none of the guys check. You just got all these cars for free. Well, that's all fine and dandy until you try to maybe buy a house or you want to buy another car. And now you got 5 auto loans in your name. You're automatically going to get turned down. So what I tell everybody is if you're serious about becoming a Turo host or you've been doing it for a while, you need to sit down with your local bank or credit union and talk to them about getting a commercial line of credit. This is very important. They have some companies have rental car lines of credit, other ones just have fleet accounts, or they just have a generic line of credit. You can go to your banker and tell them exactly what you're doing. I'm a rental car company. Here are my cars. Here's the income I'm making from there. I want to refinance a few of my cars, and this is the best way to start off the relationship. You pay to refinance those cars in the company's name, so this way it's out of your personal name, it's out of your headache, and then on top of that, with your business credit, you could scale infinitely. We had up to, I think it was 60-something cars, and it was all in my company's name. I didn't have to ruin my personal credit. I can go out and buy my own personal car if I wanted. This is what you want to do before you get too big, because a lot of these guys now, their credit's shut. They got 13 cars on there. They can't get any more. They're absolutely screwed. So you will reach a point, and especially as, like I said, the auto market's falling apart and banks are getting ripped off and screwed over, it's going to get much harder for you to get 3, 4, 5 cars on a personal credit profile. So you want to start working on your commercial line of credit today, so this way you can be ready as you start to scale. One of my favorite tips is do not lie to your insurance company. This one cracks me up. Are you using this car for commercial purpose? You should always tell them, yes, you're using it for Turo. They may charge you an extra $5 to $10, but guess what? If something happens and Turo doesn't want to cover your car, at least you have some sort of a backup. Because I know it's not a lot of people that talk about this on Turo, but there are cases where if your car gets damaged outside of Turo, it's not covered. And if they find out that it's being used as commercial use, they may deny your application. One of my friends had his car parked at a hotel. Somebody just walked by and smashed it up with a stick or hammer or something. But when he reached out to Turo, Turo was like, well, the customer never picked it up. So he got a bad review because the customer's upset he didn't get the car and he didn't get any type of insurance coverage. When he called his insurance carrier, they're asking, why did you leave it at a hotel? And he told them that it's because it's a Turo rental. And they said, well, commercial use, we don't cover. And they winded up basically not paying for his repairs. So you want to make sure that you be as honest as you can with your insurance company. Another thing you should do is look for an insurance umbrella to cover all of your property if it's sitting somewhere physically, because a lot of these commercial policies will cover them if they're driving, whatever else, but they will not cover it if it's fire, stolen, flooded, whatever else. So make sure you check your insurance to have the adequate coverage. Next tip is you need to learn about depreciation. This is probably one of the biggest things that kills every single rental car company out there. Every Turo guru and all these guys that we used to make fun of about 2 years ago, they're all gone because every 2 years they have a cycle where you have to get rid of your cars because you're beating them up, you're adding miles, and if you don't pay down your depreciation or the vehicle, it gets out of control. So if you bought this G-Wagon for $80,000 and you're making $1,500 a month and your car payment, let's say, is $500, you're thinking, well, man, I got $1,000 left over. This is perfect. I got all this money. I'm just going to put it in my pocket. Wrong. You take $200 out, that goes to maintenance. You buy the parts, stuff you need, take another $300 out, maybe $400. That goes to actual depreciation. You pay down the car before you actually need to, and then the rest, let's say it's $400 or $500, you keep that in your pocket. That's your money. That's what you earned. The reason why is because every 2 years when you go to defleet and you put maybe 20,000 miles on this G-Wagon, they're going to look at it and be like, hey, you know what? Your loan is still $76,000, but we're going to give you $55,000 or $60,000 on it. If you don't pay it down, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And especially when it comes to you getting like corporate lines of credit and stuff like that, if you have equity in the cars, they will give you more money. I've literally gotten titles for 4 or 5 cars, gave it to them so this way I could buy some of the exotics that we had on our rental line. And that's how they did it. Like, okay, well, he actually has equity in a lot of his rental car fleet. And so these are some of the things that you can really work out. Now, if you want to be really gangster with it, my second year of business, when we started doing this, every dollar I made, I actually paid down the car. And the reason why I did this is because I knew that in a year I was going to get all new cars. So I just kept doing it. And so every time I'd make $1, I would put it in the car. And some of the cars I actually paid off before the even first year came, which was great. So when I sold them, after they racked up like 20,000 miles, all that money I got at once. Some of these cars I made, $20,000 on, and it was great. I got to keep all of it. And so if you do it right like this, you'll be able to have a big payday within every 18 to 24 months. It's a little bit tough, but it's definitely worth it. Now, the next tip is you want to stand out on Turo, because I'm sure if you look at Turo, all the pictures look the same, and you'd be surprised on how many cars they take pictures of that are dirty. There's a bunch of crap lying around in their yard. You see their kids' bike trash. They're in some like crappy apartment complex and you can see the dumpsters behind. That is not a good look. And then you see the other half, people that are parking cars in front of mansions with like amazing views and stuff like that. They take them down to the beach and take pictures. Those are the things that will let people know that your cars are different. One of the things that I did is I took all my cars to similar places, but I put a different border on there. So very, very smallly, I put basically, it's like a red and black band around it, and then I had my logo. So every time somebody was scrolling and they saw that logo, they knew that there was something different. Hopefully they would click on it and they'd realize that this was my company. So they can go either to my website or they can go on Turo, see all my cars. So if they were interested in this G-Wagon, but it's too expensive, they can go to my other fleet and see what else I have and possibly make a deal. But we're all fighting for the same space, so you need to do something a little bit different. Now, the next tip is keeping along with that trend, being different or unique. You'd be surprised, but I remember when we used to have some of these cheap rental cars like the Mustangs, the Camaros, the Chargers, they were boring, they were plain. So I bought them just like everybody else, but I did something different. I put $1,500 and I bought vinyl graphics across the side of it. Some of the crazy Chargers, I did these really cool graphics, painted the wheels black. The Mustangs and Camaros, I put the racing stripes and did some other cool stuff too. I remember we had a pink Mustang that was just kind of a joke, and we just left the wrap on there. It got so many rentals because it was different. It was unique. I'm here in Las Vegas. People want to do crazy stuff. We had an actual Ford F-150 that we wrapped in chrome. The rentals doubled once we actually wrapped it. So if you could do anything different or unique to spice it up, it's definitely a good look. If you guys remember my lifted smart car, at the one time we had about, I think, 13 of these things running around, but then we started lifting 1 or 2 of those just to see how the market would go, and people absolutely loved them. So we're probably gonna bring those ones back, but it just makes you a little bit different and unique compared to everybody else, and that's all we're doing is we're trying to stand out in the crowd. So my final tip is a little bit about how you run your business and your business practices. I tell everybody you wanna stay mobile and agile. You wanna be constantly pivoting to whatever the market brings you. This is very important. If you guys remember 2020 to 2022, everybody was making a ton of money. People were buying Mercedes, BMWs, Lexuses, sports cars, SUVs. Those were the big rentals because you're making, hundreds of dollars in every single rental. But what happened after that? 2023, 2024 absolutely sucked. Nobody had any money. All the stimulus dollars were gone. So everything slowed down. What was the next thing? Economy cars. If you had cheap, affordable cars, you'd be constantly moving and getting these cars in and out. So the ability to pivot and to constantly be adjusting with the market is probably the most important thing that I can tell you guys. And just to show you proof of this is, like I said, just from those few years, look how much the market changed, but not only the market, but how much vehicle prices have changed. And this is very important. If you would have bought this G-Wagon, let's say in 2021, you probably would have paid $80,000, right? So you paid 80 grand for this thing, and guess what would be selling for today? Probably close to 60 grand. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because if you constantly get out of your cars and you move and you get rid of stuff before you're basically destitute and you're desperate, if you got rid of it, like let's say this car is running out, but you started to see the market slow down and you're like, you know what, I bought it for 80, I made 2 grand in rentals, but I'm gonna sell it for 75, I'm gonna take a hit for 5 grand, let me just move it, get it out of there. But what do people do? I need to show that I have a G-Wagon on my account. So they keep it, and then fast forward to today, they're like, hey, you know what? I want to sell this car. Oh yeah, this car, I don't know, maybe 60 grand is what I'll give you for it. And you're like, man, but I bought it for 80. I'm going to lose a bunch of money. You made a little bit of money in between time, but this market slowed down. Where that 5 grand you lost, maybe you bought a Toyota Corolla. And that thing went up in sales like crazy because you were having all these cheap, affordable rentals. So it's constantly pivoting and adjusting to what the market demands is how you're going to become successful and stay successful in the rental car business. Because if you guys have been watching my channel any time, that was one of the first things that popped off on my views was about the rental car business, how to get a license, how to get insurance, how to do all this other fun stuff. And all these Turo clowns were just making fun of them. And little by little, like I said, all these guys are gone. I can't remember half of their names, but I remember a few of them had like 200, 300,000 subscribers. But now after they basically burnt everybody and their business practices were crap, they're nowhere to be found. So I want to see you guys try it. be successful, and keep growing. Because at the end of the day, the whole purpose of this channel is to be transparent about the automotive industry, whether you want to be a dealer, wholesaler, you want to rent cars, you want to open up a repair shop, do body work, or you just want to flip cars in your backyard. I am here to help you, and it's something I love and appreciate and love showing you guys. But on that note, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please put in the comment section down below. For the first hour, I try to answer every single one. Also follow me on Instagram at Lucky Lopez. We're always doing fun stuff, going to auctions, buying cars and crashing into stuff. We'll see you next video.